is positive.
Now, a lot of teams have rules. For instance, the Pittsburgh Steelers, before their Super Bowl appearances, have a rule that no family isn't allowed to stay at the hotel. Team has to stay at a separate hotel. You can't have any contact with your family on the Saturday and the Sunday of the game. They try and isolate the players and keep them in a bubble. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Like, I'm actually going to just talk about the rule itself and why it's in place. Because for a lot of these people, it increases anxiety to have more expectations. It's almost adding more pressure to them to hear that mom wants to hear them that they're doing well, to hear from dad that there's money that could come out of this, and so they're kind of keeping them in an isolated bubble so that their stress level is regulated.
Talking with Dr. Leah Lagos, sports psychologist, and that's an interesting point that you made, because the old Jets under Eric Mangini as a team, they weren't allowed to do anything. I mean, these players all wanted to take advantage of being in New York. They know their career is so short. They wanted to get on TV, local TV here, make some appearances. A lot of them had broadcast aspirations. They maybe studied that in school. He would never let them do that. Now, Rex Ryan let him do everything. The Friday before the game, Thursday and Friday, we were having players on Fox 5 local here. Wow. The night before the game, in the team hotel, players were doing live interviews with local TV stations. I mean, Eric Mangini wouldn't let them do that before a regular season game, before a preseason game. Here's Rex Ryan letting them do it before the AFC Championship game. And I was like, is this a good or a bad thing? And I think sometimes that's determined whether or not the team wins or loses, right? I
think it's also determined by individual sensitivity. So for one team, it may be a huge stressor. For another team, it may be less of a stressor. We all have different, what's called physiological sensitivities. A really loud clap may raise someone's blood pressure.
It'd be funny if all the lights shut off when you clapped.
And for another person, they'd be looking around the room as if they hardly even heard it. So that's why I was cautious in saying it's a good rule or a bad rule, because I think there's a lot of individual sensitivities that come to play.
But that comes.
What about the other side of the coin? I remember a lot of the Giants when they were in the Super Bowl talking about how during the regular season there were only 5 or 6 players that were interviewed on a regular basis, and then come Super Bowl time, every player has a microphone in front of their face. Media week and especially media day, it's multiple interviews all the time. Is there a pressure? Is there a way that player who's never had to deal with the media has to gear up for that, and does that affect the game?
It certainly could be a possible stressor. If this was someone who didn't have a lot of experience, you put yourself in a new situation, you're likely to have higher anxiety.
That's an interesting point, especially going back to Super Bowl 42 with Bill Belichick's team. And having covered the Patriots 1 year as a sportscaster in Boston, he doesn't let them talk at all. So, and he would get on some of the programs the responses. And now all of a sudden you have a team that's, oh, by the way, 18-0 going for the perfect season. And they have to, mandated, all be available for the media and all be able to talk. So that, and where the Giants, on the other hand, even though they had a strict head coach, they were kind of more used to the, media and the give and take. Now that I look back and I wonder, did that factor in? That's an interesting point.
Yes, what you said. I think it comes down to coaching, like you were just talking about, like Rex Ryan, and he lets his players do that. But it's how your players respond, and you get them to respond. It's a high-stress situation you're in when you play a pro sport game.
Rex Ryan was very unique in his coaching abilities, because everything he was saying to the camera, he was saying to his family, his players, and
he was giving them the finger.
He was evoking emotion. Sometimes he was increasing it. They went from being a very passive team to a very active team.
He was holding them accountable.
Yes, but he also would bring them back down.
Those guys love him.
Yeah,
I mean,
and respond for that.
I mean, having those guys on and some of the players throughout the course of the season, and not only do they love him because he's quote unquote a player's coach. It's the guy that was the coach before him, was the mean boss, and now they have, the boss that lets him.
He's still in Cleveland right now, right? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to hold on to him for 1 more year so we can let him go. And then just.
Well, that also factors into the CBA. And you don't want to get a new coach, give him a 3-year contract,
and that makes sense.
And pay a guy not to coach.
Pay Mangini's other 4 years. He did sign a 5-year contract, so the ownership.
And then you'd have to pay somebody, so you'd be paying at least a total of 7 years if there's no football.
So that's what, that makes a lot more sense than keeping them for talent. Thank you, gentlemen.
So superstitions.
Yes.
I noticed and covering pro sports, some guys have tons and tons of superstitions. Nomar Garcia-Parra used to drive people crazy. Football players, maybe not as much as baseball players, or we don't notice as much because we don't have access to them every day or see them on TV every single day. Superstition's a good thing or a bad thing?
I wouldn't argue with superstition. If you believe something, it makes you feel confident, go for it. I helped do interviews at the combines for various NFL teams, interviewing draft prospects, and I've seen guys show up with a picture of their favorite grandma in their pocket because it makes them feel good and relaxed. Great. If that's the effect this has on you, fantastic.
Hey, switching gears kind of, I heard that at the combine last year, and even in baseball with scouts, and at the combine this year, one of the questions, and it happened down in Mobile, Alabama at the East-West or the College All-Star game, one of the questions that teams are asking is, do you use Facebook, do you use Twitter? Have you come across that to the players? Because of all the Twitter incidents and the negativity associated with players saying dumb things on there.
Well, I think it's important to assess risk, and that can be interpreted in different ways in the context of all the information they have about how this person interacts with friends, family, what kind of risks they bring. Are they saying things that are inappropriate? Are they just using it for family relationships? So really within the broader context of the person.
See, football is such a secretive sport, and the way they close off practice, and the way you can only shoot so much, and it's all top secret, top notch. Give me your playbook before you cut a guy. I don't know if I'd let my guys use Twitter or Facebook.
Well, the NBA teams are starting to have it in the contracts that they have to bring all tweets and all Facebook posts through the PR department before they're allowed to post them.
And the tennis players can't do it during the tournament because the gambling.
Well, and also from a psychological perspective, it's a distraction. If even in tennis, after every round, you're going to the sidelines and tweeting.
Well, we were actually tweeting during the show.
What's that? Yeah,
we were actually tweeting during the show.
It's tweeting's banned in tennis and in professional sports as well.
Hey, before we let you go, the Wonderlic test, have you ever seen one of those?
I have.
If you score poorly on the Wonderlic test, does that mean you're not a smart person? I've always wondered this. I mean, if you get like off the charts Wonderlic, like Steve Young, are you a brilliant person?
There are various views on the Wonderlic test that it has validity and sometimes it doesn't have validity. I also think there's newer tests that can assess specific personality traits more accurately. I'm not saying the Wonderlic doesn't have its effective points, but
Gino's the only guy to score worse than Vince.
You know who did really well on that Wonderlic test? That porn star. She did great on the Wonderlic test. She did. The
highest Wonderlic test is supposed to be it's either Steve Young or I'm trying to think.
It wasn't Vince Young. He was the worst.
Or Matt Burke. Matt Burke, the center for the Ravens, who went to Harvard.
Really?
Yeah, scored extremely high, I think. Useless knowledge. So does that river flow this way?
I somehow think the Wonderlic test matters a lot less than how you run the 40 for most NFL teams.
Yeah, I think the 40 is overrated too.
Dude.
How many tight ends run 40s very, very well?
Yeah, that's
How many safeties? Do you think Sharper runs a great 40?
Not at this age.
what psychological strategies do you think are necessary to run the 40 very well?
Fast legs.
Relaxed muscles.
Relaxed muscles.
You have to filled with fear. All right, what are the predictions?
Before we go, Colts blowout. Doctor?
I just want them to perform well and,
Doc.
and to the best of their ability.
That sounds like how you start out all your dates. I just want them to perform well. What?
She's been hired by both of them. She's playing both sides.
Gino?
Colts to the over. Take the over on the national anthem and take heads because when they flip that coin, Darren Sharper is going to look at Drew Brees and say, "What is on your head?" Hi there. Hi there. Oh, I'm on Red Eye Monday night. Don't miss it.
Take the Saints in the over.
Really?
Yeah.
Colts to the under, Saints to the over? Dude, we're
Saints
betting something
to the
on
over.
that, and next week the loser has to show up with whatever.